Hello, Internet friends. I'm Ryan, and this is Demos in the Dark. And what I'm about to say is possibly classified as bold, but I mean it. So here we go. Tonight, we are going to be looking at an effects pedal that I don't care who you are. I don't care what type of music you play. I don't care what instrument you play. You're going to want it. Tonight, we are looking at the golden era real-time lo-fi machine from TEFI Vintage Lab. Golden Era was developed by TEFI Vintage Lab, as well as James Edward Bagshaw of the band Temples. Yes, the band Temples. I love the band Temples. I've seen them live. I saw them at First Avenue. It was amazing. I own all their records. They're a great live band, a great recorded band. And if you're familiar with Temples, you know that they have this really great vintage lo-fi vibe to them. The first time hearing Sun Structures, I was like, when was this record recorded? Because it has that very classic sound to it. And so James wanted to take that vibe and be able to reproduce it in real time. And enter the Golden Era. So the Golden Era has some cool functions to it. It has a vinyl warp to it, a very good sounding vinyl warp. It also has some tape wobble on it, and you can run these two together and blend them together. You can use them separately. They both sound incredible. On top of that, you have a noise control. And so this noise replicates, some of the sounds that you get from old tape machinery, some of the sounds of old hiss and pops and stuff like that from vinyl. And it sounds great. You have a filter so you can really dial in the way you want this vintage sound to sound. And it's great. Then we have a waveform selector on there. We have a pretty significant low cut toggle as well, which will give you that cool kind of telephone, dictaphone, nasally kind of sound. Yeah, it's cool. This thing is awesome. And you can run it on anything. And on this mix here, I'm going to run it on guitars. I'm going to run it on Mellotron. I'm going to run it on Wurlitzer. I did not run it on drums or bass, but you certainly can and certainly should. And then after that, we'll go through this thing and turn some knobs. dive into the golden era from TEFI Vintage Lab. But first, I'm running a Bunting Guitars Alice into a Benson Amps Monarch reverb. Sounds like this. All right, cool. So let's start with the controls here. Up top, we have the wobble. That is the depth of the tape wobble. And then down below that, we have the warp. And that is the depth of the warp sound, kind of a record sounding warp. Next to that, we have the noise control. And so you can introduce a little noise, you can introduce a lot of noise, but the noise is cool. It's very, very cool. And then we have a filter, and that adjusts the cutoff frequency of the resonant filter, and it cuts response on the treble frequencies, simulating some of that kind of nasal effect. And then we have a speed. This is the speed of the modulation of both the wobble and the warp. Then you have a level control. This is the overall output level. And then we have a toggle switch here that will take you between two different waveforms, one that's kind of rounded and one that is very square wave for something a little bit more choppy. And then down here, we have this low cut that it will cut off so much low that it really gives it that telephone answering machine kind of sound. It's very, very cool. On the side, we have an expression pedal in the input, and the expression pedal will control the speed of the modulation. So let's start with a couple of different controls and turn them and see what kind of sounds we can get. Cool. That tape wobble sounds awesome. So now let's check out the vinyl side, the warp side. All right, so now that we've tried the wobble and the warp separately, let's bring them both together and see what kind of cool sounds we can get out of that. All right, so you go. That is just a really brief overview of the golden era real-time lo-fi machine from TEFI Vintage Lab. Cool. Super, super, super cool. That's all I gotta say. Absolutely wonderful. Hey, thank you for your time.